there's our pull-in to the feature match area. It is just after 3:30 p.m. local time here in San Diego, California, United States of America, and we are ready for round 13 action of Pro Tour Dragon's Maze. There is Andrew Shrout on your left, Orrin Swift on your right.
Unleash. Sure.
And we are ready for them to start playing.
Swift seems to be backing up his namesake Gar, right? With a very, very aggressive-looking red aggro deck. We see the white-bordered plains from Shrout.
That's when Pimpiness wraps all the way back around. You go from Guru Land to Foil to regular land, all the way back down to
There's a hipster element to
Right.
that, I think.
One moment,
I was there with the revised plains.
Your name was?
Andrew.
Rashad would like us to remember, of course, full art on Hinged Lands, which were probably the first like super blingy land.
I liked my unglued islands. They were suitably epic, I think. Okay, so was Shrout now a deck that we, I was thinking, okay, I saw Sacred Foundry Mount. I was thinking an aggressive Boros deck off to a slow start. We see a Sphinx's Revelations looking a little different. Let's try and get a look at those hands in a little bit. And
Swift in for another attack will drop Shrout down to 13.
all right, so we see an absolutely stacked grip there out of Shrout. No blue mana, though, which sounds like he could really use right now. Looking at Swift's hand, he's flooded the board with creatures. I mean, I would love if that island was slow rolling a Supreme Verdict, but that's exactly what we see.
Well, yeah, that was.
All right.
Pretty solid, they say.
All right. Shrout 12, Swift 20, and a board reset. But, I mean, Swift's hand still has some stuff in it here.
Oh, yeah. I mean, he's still going to be able to reset the board. He's got Cackler, Chainwalker, can get...
He's got a Hasty Loyalist there that comes in.
Unleash.
All right, so he gets 1 point of damage in now, presenting 3 points of damage next turn with only 2 mana. Doing exactly what he wants to do. Oh, we see a symbol of the Legion. Potentially the reason Shrout is playing this color combination in the first place.
Wow, how techy is that you play the control deck and then just assemble an ever larger army?
I'm really digging this deck of Shrouts. I haven't really seen it much in action, but a lot of very powerful cards.
It's helped lead him to a 10-2 record up to this point. He gets rid of the Chain Flinger.
I'm kind of also digging the rubble belt Maka technology. Third pick draft common deck with Chainwalker into Maka, but can present a pretty reasonable clock.
All right, Shrout down to 10. There's another Supreme Verdict.
I got to really respect the slow rolling of the blue mana.
Steve Mann and the San Diego Zoo deck has taken a quick first game off of Arilax.
All right, so we've seen 2 Supreme Verdicts from Shrout. Shrout's still sitting at what you have to assume is a reasonably comfortable 10 life. He's got, still doesn't have mana though. Okay, he did draw his 5th land. He can deploy.
He's going to shock himself to do that though.
Or yeah.
He's going to shock himself to do that to cast Jace, and then +1 it to make the attack, blunt the attack a little bit.
What a lot of players are telling me, Sheldon, is that your blue decks essentially have to run 4 Jace just because they can't run 8 Supreme Verdict. Jace not quite Supreme Verdict, but it is going to stem the bleeding a little bit as well as draw a couple of cards and can hopefully help you find more Wraths at a later date. And that's sort of what we see now. Swift, has 3 power worth of creatures on the table, but can only really meaningfully attack for 1 right now.
You see there on the crawl, Kai Buddha, Brian Kibler, Patrick Chapen in the hunt, Gabriel Nassif, all in the hunt at 9-3.
I'll discard Roll Built Maka.
Oh, man.
So takes Jace down to 1. And Mate Zadokai has taken a quick game 1 from Ken Yukihiro. He leads that match 1-0. Always good. I mean, guys from both of my sides are doing really well. I got a coverage guy doing really well in Mate. Got a judge guy doing really well, Rab Castellan.
It all revolves around you, Chapen. You're the battery, you're the engine
Right.
of success on the Pro Tour. So, I mean, I kind of like just playing Assemble the Legion right now, taking Jace up. I mean, your opponent just burned 4 points of damage on Jace earlier just to try and make you, not able to draw cards off of it. I have to think that gives you more confidence in your 8 life, especially when your opponent only has 2 mountains, and that'll let you get your engine online.
That Legion is just going to start making guys. They're going to chump for a little while, but then there's just going to be too many of them, and they're just going to swarm over.
People were talking to me about Assemble Legion, joking that it's the red-white planeswalker in this set. Yeah. Kind of just a cruise gradual advantage. And
another Chainwalker there from Swift, and he battles in and attacks Jace.
Yeah, having the red creature obviously very, very relevant, allowing those 2 guys to finish Jace off because of the Denizen's plus 1 ability.
Okay. All right, so first soldier hired for the Legion.
And, well, I mean, what we're seeing here, like, Shrout's put up a great fight with just Supreme Verdicts, Planeswalkers, and creature tokens, but has not yet cast a Sphinx's Revelation. He's got 2 in his hand, meaning that very quickly he's going to be able to get back from that 8-point life deficit and really get back in this game, of course, with a full grip to capitalize on it, on top of everything else.
All right, here come 2 Chainwalkers in. 2, 3, 2. Along with the Maka.
Block the Denizen.
Sorry, the Denizen.
5. Go 3.
Goes to 3, but he's probably not going to stay at 3 for very long. Yeah.
That's a card.
Red for 3.
That's a card, Orrin says. It's actually 3 cards,
right.
I think.
And 3 life. That will take Andrew Shrout back up to 6.
And let's not forget, of course, about the 2 tokens he's going to be getting this turn. That number is only going to be getting bigger the longer this game goes on. Wow, and a 3rd Sphinx's Revelation for Shrout. I mean, we could just see back-to-back Revelation into Revelation into Revelation.
Right. I mean, you have Assemble Legion. You don't really care if these 2 little guys get killed.
Yeah, exactly. In fact, that's probably what you're going to allow to happen.
Oh, no, he's not.
You have 7-ish.
Yeah, the reason we were thinking he could theoretically cast Revelation in his turn was just to make sure he makes a land drop, but also obviously keeping mana open has a lot of benefit as well. You do have to worry at least a little bit, I think, if your opponent untaps a 2 mana, running it into Skullcrack, but that is not a card we see in too many main decks. It's simply just something that you have to think about. Right, we see a Thought Flare from Shrout too, so a lot of card advantage in this deck.
Thought Flare might be one you're not familiar with. It is an instant from Return to Ravnica. It's an uncommon. You draw 4 cards, discard 2. So you get your pick of the best 4.
I'll block there.
Okay.
So there's block and
Charm Chainwalker.
You see
gonna
Charm
charm the Chainwalker.
protecting Shrout's life total, as well as forcing Orrin to redraw a Chainwalker next turn. Now, oh, okay.
Charm Cackler.
Wow, charm.
That's potentially even more of a
Alright,
beating.
yeah,
that
I
means
will
he's drawing a
put this
1
back.
mana 2/2 next turn.
It's
Not
on
really
camera,
what he needs
so
to put this.
We'll be able to reconstruct it if some
Game
weird.
away.
All right. And that goes to trade.
And there's the trade. So Andrew Shrout at a low 6 life to Orange Swift 20. But you got to think that Shrout is in complete control of this match.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, we get a legitimate soldier token.
Upkeep.
Sure.
And this
need
Assembled
more,
Legion
by the
just
way.
doing its work right here.
Yeah, Assemble the Legion is certainly going to be Orange Swift's undoing unless he can do something really. I mean, he certainly doesn't have any main deck enchantment removal.
16, right?
Right, yeah, I mean, certainly in his mono-red deck. I mean, Electrickery actually probably pretty powerful against Assembled Legion. Assembled Legion, really good effect. On the other hand, in a format defined by Jason with Electrickery, a really popular sideboard card, not necessarily as game-changing as it could be in other contexts. But I mean, still obviously producing tokens every turn is not weak.
Right. So we see Shrout, Sphinx's Revelation for 4, which will fill his hand and take him to 10. There's certainly no 10 damage coming from...
Should have been Cackler on top. It should have been Chainwalker, then Cackler. But I charmed twice. It should be...
Yes, there was 2 charms.
Yeah.
Yeah, it
Okay.
does look like Heckler is on top. They just wanted to
Yeah.
confirm the operations were okay. And, of course, we know what the next draw from Orrin's going to be.
Right.
Which is one of the reasons that Charm
You
Play
did
is so
not
powerful,
unleash.
just giving yourself predictable information.
Pretty good there.
Right. So now, total of 9 soldier tokens for Andrew Shrout.
All right, we see a prophetic prism, kind of a neat way to make sure that you
Burn your
get to
guy.
fix your mana. See a main
Swing
phase
for,
burn.
8.
And again, Shroud has nearly perfect information right now, so he doesn't have to worry
Sure.
about attacking with all of his creatures. He knows Swift's going to be drawing a Chain Walker, which is only going to be able to do so much right now.
I mean, the real beating is those tokens have haste.
Yeah, right, exactly. And they keep coming. We have assembled the Legion today, Sheldon.
Get in there with
For all you Boros fans, for all you Hagans, we have seen, this is the
That's fine.
Legion.
There's definitely 2 charms.
Yeah, it's all good.
All right, so this is the same deck list. So.
Or Swift.
That was a pretty solid hand there, too.
Yeah, the keep was a little loose. I don't know. It was, well, it didn't have a blue source.
Oh, you
but
hit the
it was-
blue.
Yeah, the keep was, it was like,
I knew you were waiting on a blue, too. I was like, oh, that's going to
yeah,
happen.
it was like Foundry Mountain Plains, and then Azorius Charm, Verdict.
We'd like to thank Gaming Etc. for being an official card retailer here at Pro Tour Dragon's Maze. Use the promo code PTSAN when ordering on GamingEtc.com to earn 10% off all singles and accessories. For more information, visit GamingEtc.com. So what kind of sideboard action are we going to see here, Zach?
Well, I believe out of short, we've got just more ways to stay alive. We've got 3 Boros Reckoners, 2 Muggings, and an Etherize, if that's what he wants, as well as another Assemble the Legion, if he thinks he has the time to use it, although I don't know that he's going to bring in a second copy.
And on the other side?
We've got Skullcrack, I think is probably the most important variable, just keeping some of those Sphinx's Revelations off the table. Also, you don't know if you're going to see a War Leader's Helix out of a red, white, blue deck. It doesn't look like Short has it, but can definitely do some work if he does.
All right, we're going to take a look here at Assemble the Legion, the card that swung that first game. So, builds an army of tokens over time, and we saw that it didn't take that much time. It's a 5 mana cost enchantment, so it's considerable. But once you start getting there, you really start getting there. Been successful in the Star City Games tournament circuit, appearing in 10 top 8 decks, and it's just, I mean, it's difficult to remove for the mid-range control decks. Certainly, nearly impossible to remove for the aggressive beatdown decks.
Right. Of course, the beatdown decks' plan is to just not give you the time to take advantage of it. But where you want this is if you think your opponent has a lot of spot removal spells, a bunch of terror effects, or even supreme verdicts, because they can kill your creatures all you want to. The Legion's going to keep on coming.
Yeah, about the only thing that helps against this is getting rid of it, because they keep coming. They're hasty. So you got, we saw right there, 4 on one turn, 5 on the next. That's 13 damage. You got 6 more coming. That's 19 damage over 3 turns. It's really difficult to survive an onslaught like that.
Nah, that's true. I think if we can talk a little bit more about how sideboarding is going to work, there's a couple of cards I didn't actually see that might be really valuable right now. I'm really digging the Dramatic Rescue out of Shrout's sideboard. I think that 3 life, or sorry, is Rescue 2 life?
1 life.
1 life. Billy Moreno has played a lot of. Oh,
2
okay,
life.
so it gains 2 life. So on the other end, you might be down a card. On the other end,
Definitely
when
under
every
that.
single point of
I don't feel
damage
like we're
counts,
gonna need it,
I
but-
think this is probably exactly the matchup
Appreciate
where
it.
you'd want this card. Just buy yourself some time and preserve your life total as much as
closest
you
I
can.
came to
It can
time was
become
about 20
like a
minutes.
5-point swing. He's attacking with a 3-power guy.
Exactly.
Not only do you prevent the 3 damage, but you gain 2
I'm
more.
more prone to that.
So that can be really, really huge when time is really a major factor.
Now, I'm seeing these Hellraiser goblins out of Ari Swift's board. Can we take a look at that one? I haven't raised Hell in a good little while.
Pros here myself, so.
I think R-A-I-S-E-R. Sheldon is querying Razor-like realm.
Hellraiser
okay.
Goblin. Creatures you control have haste and attack each combat if available, if able. So that's a 2/2
Both of my
for
sevens.
3. The important part is giving your guys
Yeah,
haste.
and I think this is exactly another card that you want here. It's 3 mana in your 19 land deck, which is not the easiest to cast.
And there's a lot of like philosophies on that with red, but like I think most players will keep like a 1-lander as long as it has like at least 2 1-drops, I guess, or something like that. But that still seems kind of
Listening to Shrout talk about the mulligan.
It depends on the format. I keep 1-landers more in modern.
Sure. No, I just went with that deck in particular.
I keep a 1-lander with a Goblin Guide and a Bolt. I don't even care what the other cards are.
Yeah. Like, I played around with that deck some, and I honestly felt like the mulligans were the hardest part, and I just could never. Felt like I was always getting it wrong. It might have just been like my results. You know,
Right, you could certainly, in Modern, you can certainly lose on turn 0.
Exactly. And in Modern, you certainly get to play with Goblin Guide.
losing bunch of matches by,
I think this deck would really like to be able to do it.
Sure, well, there are a lot of decks that like to be played with Goblin Guide.
But point of all that being, I think Hellraiser Goblin, very, very valuable right here. Extremely effective against Supreme Verdict. Helps you top deck a lot better. Gives you a little bit of meat, you know, in your second wave of attacks. I kind of like bringing that card in for Boris Reckoner here.
Yeah, I was just going to ask what would come out, and why do you take out the Reckoner?
I think, I mean, Reckoner, you know, it's good against their Reckoners, so in that case you might keep it in, but we actually saw less burn-based removal. We saw Turn and Burn, which can actually deal with the Reckoner anyway. It's just, you know, it's a trained Armada, it's hard to cast, it doesn't have haste, it walks right into Supreme Verdict. I think Rebel Belt Maka, also not terribly exciting. Annihilating Fire, not terribly exciting. You don't really want spot removal against the deck that's going to kill you with Assemble the Legion. So I think I'd bring in Skullcrack Hellraiser Goblin here, and maybe just trim some numbers on potentially Legion Loyalists.
Win the die roll.
Keep the Dyna charges so you can just get those extra points of damage in.
Yeah, I mean, you just want to kill your opponent as fast as possible. Dyna Charge helps you do that.
All right, there's a keepable 7, it looks like, from Ori Swift.
Yeah, actually looks like a pretty good hand from Swift this time. We got a nice 1-2-3 curve. Or sorry, yeah, 1-2-3 curve with you know, another 2-drop back up in case your opponent has a Supreme Verdict. So this is exactly the kind of draw you want if you're Swift.
Because you keep putting another level of pressure on.
That's exactly right. Now, the big question whether you cast Chainwalker or Ash Zealot on the second turn. You know, Hellraiser Goblin gives all of your creatures haste, which suggests to me you'd want to lead with Zealot and follow up with Chainwalker on turn 4
right,
on
because
top
the
of
Zealot is
Fire
also
Fist Striker.
hasty.
Yeah, but I could see leading with Chainwalkers so as to play around Supreme Verdict and have a haste creature to follow that up.
I'll pass.
And on the back table, matchup of 2 of the Titans of Magic. Patrick Chapen leads 1-0 over Gabriel and Seif.
Shrout putting lands in play untapped, which not necessarily that great for him. You see Azorius Charm right there, so he's going to take 2 damage either way, but...
He's going to turn and burn the... Or he's going to burn the Ash Zealot.
All right, so trading 2
Wait a
damage
minute.
now for 2 damage every turn later.
How do you burn an Ash Zealot?
Well, see, it's ash, so it's already been burned. It's very sensitive to that. Okay, big Hellraiser Goblin attack from Swift right here. Setting up, again, an attack with both Goral's Chainwalker and Fire Fist Striker next turn if he has the additional land. So we're really seeing that Hellraiser Goblin do the work we were talking about doing
there's the 4th land.
just a minute ago.
Corehouse Chainwalker?
Yep.
Unleashed?
Unleashed on the Gorehouse Chainwalker. Followed up with
Fire Fist Striker?
Fire Fist Striker.
Moving to combat?
Go for it.
Here we go.
Thanks.
All right, that is, I believe, 9 damage. 9 is not 10. However, it is very close.
Yeah, and Shrout needs to have the Supreme Verdict in his hand.
Now we're seeing Skullcrack out of Swift, so if he gets him down to 1, next turn he can untap and burn
kill
for
him.
3, so Shrout really needs to preserve his life total right now. And it's kind of awkward putting one of your opponent's creatures on top of your deck, even if you do have the Supreme Verdict, you know you're giving them more threats, but 9 is just a lot of damage to attack for on turn 4.
All right. Let's see. Oh, there's an Aetherize from Shrout.
And Aetherize, I do believe, can keep him alive for 1 more turn. The downside is you do not want to put one of those dual lands into play untapped in order to be able to do that.
Right. But he's going to.
You're up.
And just
We don't have. I don't think we have Shrout's life total correct.
No, these life totals are not accurate.
He should be at 4.
I believe 3.
Or 3.
Right. Or is that not correct? Okay, so we're seeing big attack right here. Either is buying a lot of time, to be fair.
Skullcrack?
But yeah, Skullcrack for
There's
3,
the
and that's
Skullcrack. That's the game. All right, so Orrin Swift has
Eyes
taken
dirty.
game 2 from Andrew Shrout. We are going to go
you seen
to
that one
game
I
3
have not.
on our feature
Yeah, I
table
obviously know of
match.
its
You
existence.
knew it was a card, but yeah, I know. But had anyone played it?
And Stephen Mann of the Florida contingent has taken Ari Lax down 2-0. You heard just a minute ago that we said Patrick Chapen was leading 1-0 over Gabriel Nassif. Any difference from Ari Swift? We'll get back to that. Show the world you watch the Pro Tour coverage with an eyes on the prize achievement. Just log on to planeswalkerpoints.com and enter the redemption code MazeRunner to earn your reward. The question I was just going to ask was is there a difference being on the play for Orrin Swift?
I mean, I think the big difference is that you were mad that you were that you were not going to be on the play for game 3. You know, obviously the numbers work out such that you can, you know, while you're on the play, threaten your opponent's life total into Supreme Verdict a lot more effectively than you can on the draw. Being on the draw with the red deck is just harsh. I mean, pretty much every deck has a really good plan to get through. I think we're going to see Swift rely a lot more on madcap skills, just because, you know, a lot easier to brick wall from Shrout with Boros Reckoner. He needs skills to be able to get through that. And just more opportunities to draw consistently and have the time to do so if you're Shrout. There's an argument to be made if you're Swift for keeping in both Reckoner and Hellraiser Goblin, just under the assumption that, like, okay, your opponent's going to have Jace or Supreme Verdict. They're going to have time to use it.
Sure.
If they don't have that, they're going to have a Reckoner, and you just need more meat to draw in the late game.
Roll for it again.
Nah, man.
But I don't know how I feel about that. I think you
Not
just
made
kind of
many
have to
plays
hope your
this
opponent
weekend
hiccups
that
and
I've
that your
been
draw is really
100%
good.
sure of.
And there we hear Swift
This is one of them.
saying, hey, you
Plays.
sure you don't want to roll for it to see who goes in first in game 3?
Well, die
Which-
roll's already happened.
Which, of course, Andrew Shrout politely
I'm gonna
declined.
immediately regret playing.
That'll be okay.
How?
Yeah, and the one thing we can't ignore about Shrout's deck
I
is
don't know how you can
that
possibly-
it's got
I
some
can't even
aggression
think of
to
a
it on its
situation
own.
where
It,
it's-
you know, it
I
does.
can't think of
You
like a
can't.
7
It's
card
not
nano.
classic
It would be
control that's
perfect
going to
on
sit
the
back for a long time
those
and just
Against-
deal with threats,
against
deal with threats, deal with
mono
threats.
red, I think I
It's going to
can
deal with threats and put out threats of its own.
Right. Yeah, I mean, you see, you know, he's only got a couple of Etherlings and an Assembled Legion, potentially a second Assembled Legion after sideboarding. But, you know, all of Etherling and Assembled Legion get into the game really fast.
Yeah. There you see over their shoulder another match of Titans on the back table. That's Kai Buddha on the
figured
left,
those were, like-
Brian Kibler on the right.
half
They
the game,
have
you know?
a
It was
few
like
Pro
kinda
Tour
suggests scenario
trophies
there.
between the two of them.
Just a few.
Just a few.
I think, what, 12?
Nine.
Kai has 8, right?
That was 7.
Maybe.
Let's look it up in the media guide.
Yeah.
The handy dandy
Fascinating.
media guide.
That was
think
the
the sword's
beginning,
pretty ugly, to
beginning
be
and end of
honest.
my thought process.
Regardless, we're right here on the front
Yeah.
table.
True.
Oh, sorry, 7. You're absolutely right. 7 wins for Kai, and I believe 2
for
wins
Kibler.
for Kibler. You're right. 9 wins between them. Not too shabby. Also, the fact that we can say something like 7 Pro Tour wins is a
Right.
testament to Kai's sheer ridiculousness.
So Andrew Shrout, Orrin Swift must feel pretty good that you've got 2 matches of Hall of Famers behind them with Chapen Nassif and Buddha Kibler, yet they're the guys that are on the front table.
They have arrived.
They have
in some
arrived,
sense.
For sure. All right, we see them shuffling up, going to game 3. Again, the tempo just significantly changes for Swift here when he's on the draw.
No, yeah, 100%. The other big difference about Swift being on the draw means that Shrout has more time to put his lands into play tapped, even if he's casting the same spells. I mean, every time you bolt yourself, one of the reasons the mono red deck is so good in this environment is that people start on 16 or 14 life, which makes it a lot easier to deal the required amount of damage, especially with Skullcrack after board.
All right, players looking over their mulligan decisions, and it looks like Shrout is going to 6, which certainly Swift can't hate.
No, he absolutely cannot hate that. I mean, you know, certainly being on the draw, you've got to hope your opponent concedes some advantage to you when you're, again, card advantage is not going to be a big issue past turn 4. You know that Shrout is going to be able to be up a ton of cards on you. So seeing him mulligan, you're not saying, oh, okay, this is an issue of the raw cards involved. This is an issue of saying, okay, that is one fewer chance he has to look at Supreme Verdict. That's one fewer chance he has to make sure his mana comes out right. That's one fewer chance he has to draw basic land that come to play untapped to avoid bolting himself several turns in a row. So, yeah, you've got to be pretty thrilled at your opponent mulliganing it for Swift.
And then we saw Swift's hand, 3 Mountains, Firefish Striker. We saw Skullcrack in there and an Ash Zealot. Not quite sure what the 7th card was, but you know he's gonna be battling no later than turn 2.
Yeah. Now you do have to be a little bit disappointed if you're Swift in that you don't have 1-drop. I mean, your deck has 12 1-mana creatures. They're probably not all in your deck post board, but several of them are. And you want to be putting pressure on turn 1, especially on draw.
Yeah, his peel on the play is probably Legion Loyalist. That's the one he wants. Get in and
Got a Golgari symbol on it. So.
then just roll it on. Okay, we're going to take a look at Andrew Shrout's 6-card hand.
You know, I might even guess that you'd want to draw a Rakdos Cackler. You know, it just outputs more damage. The Loyalist ability, you're not too excited for in a matchup where your opponent doesn't have blockers, and it survives 1-damage spells if those are there. But, I mean, the moral of the story is you want something on turn 1.
Shrout keeps, plays Guildgate. Turn 1 Mountain for Swift, and a sigh of relief comes from Andrew Shrout, who plays another land tapped, and we hear from the back table that Brian Kibler and Kai Buddha are knotted at 1 game apiece in their match.
This is exactly a perfect example for Shroud of why being on the play is so good. It looks like he has 3 gates in his opening hand, which normally just puts you way too far behind to do anything meaningful. But right now, he seems to be doing okay. You hear Swift say, because he played Ash Zealot and just passed. He just forgot to attack with it.
And 2 points, it is hasty. 2 points can be significant.
Oh, 2 points. I mean, it's the difference between Grizzly Bear and a really good tier 1 card. So a pretty upsetting just mental lapse by Swift. And we see it get mugged now before it can even deal any damage.
Yep. 18.
There's the Hellraiser. Going to drop Shrout to 18.
Yeah, doesn't forget to attack this time.
Right.
Guildgate. Go.
Guildgate into play tapped there for Shrout.
Just infuriating for Shroud. It's got to be, what is that, 3 Guildgate draw, 4 Guildgate draw?
Yep.
Man.
So, hasty all over the place.
4?
Yeah.
Zori's Charm.
14.
And Shrout will take
pass.
4.
Shroud just trying to preserve his life total there by charming the Hellraiser. Again, you're not too excited to use a charm on a haste creature.
And also he charms that one because Detention Sphere now can take out 2 of these guys.
That is, in
Firefish
fact, a
Strikers.
really good point. Although I'm trying to figure out how many Detention Spheres he's even playing. I'm not even sure that he is playing it. Although, are we seeing it there? Yeah.
Nope.
Which is surprising, though, Sheldon, because we've seen Detention Spheres all over the place from these Esper decks, and really from any deck that plays blue and white. So I'm surprised at that omission there for Shroud. It looks like he's aiming for just a lot more instants.
These 2 at Jace.
Okay.
Hellraiser at you.
You got it. Affects 4 damage.
All right, so Jace is doing some work right here.
13.
Basically, it's it's eating a lot of damage, but it's ticking up. It's keeping Andrew alive, and we see Skullcrack now dealing with Jace. But Jace essentially just absorbs 7 points of damage there, Sheldon.
Yeah, and 7 points representing more than half of Shrout's life total. So you can see that's a big life swing. There's the Ether Eyes that we saw last game.
We see him
play, and there's another Jace.
Yeah, and also a big Thought Flare for Shrout, too. What Shrout wants to use is these Jaces just to stem the bleeding, and then follow up with Thought Flare to just gain some card advantage and get back into this game. Swift has the same attack he can make, but essentially he's going to have to use his last Skullcrack on Jace, giving Shrout a pretty good opportunity to resolve Thought Flare.
These 2 at Jace. Hellraiser at you.
Yeah, it's 12.
Yep.
I'll Skullcrack Jace.
Yeah.
Skullcrack Jace.
So 2 Jaces having, in essence, gained Shrout 14 life, but he's going to need to follow that up now with something meaningful. He's got to take a big hit right now in order to resolve that Thought Flare. Although if Swift comes at him with another creature, he could theoretically cast Ether Eyes.
6.
Yes. Put 3 in and
Thinking.
go to 6.
Swift thinking now, trying to decide. Yeah, he's trying to act as though he has a second wave of creatures to play to potentially give Shrout some pause over how he wants to use his removal spells. All right, so big 4 cards for Shrout to draw right here. He needs a Wrath badly, or at least something approximating one.
Well, he does have the Aether Eyes, which is certainly going to save. Was going to save his life.
That's
this
true.
turn.
Yeah, he's definitely not going to die on the next attack regardless. We just see him ditching 2 lands, and he has to wish he drew a few more live spells there.
Yeah.
Okay, and there
Look at that.
was.
There's the well. So that those 4 cards got him digging into the Supreme Verdict.
Exactly.
Go. All right, Orrin Swift. Now 5th Mountain. Sure. And is that a
Okay,
that's
so
a Legion Loyalist?
yeah, I believe that is. And okay,
He's gonna get
Shrout
charmed.
says, "Great, I'll charm that. I can deal with you drawing a Raging Goblin next
Right.
turn." Just give him, again, this is Shrout at 6, Swift at 20. Shrout is feeling danger. The thing about this kind of matchup is every draw step Shrout gets just much more likely to be a value-added draw step than the draw step Swift gets.
And then when you play Aetherling, things change really, really fast.
Aetherling, not a token, can block Legion Loyalist and all of its potential friends for as long as it wants. All right, so that untap is just positively huge here. For
There's
Shrout.
Renounce the Guilds in Andrew Shrout's hand. So those are
No block.
some nice draws. It's just going to take 4.
Now we're gonna probably see that Aetherling start to play a bit of offense and defense. Yeah,
Yep. There you go.
and still the ability to Sphinx's Revelation for 2 life points and 2 cards if it comes down to it. But mainly, I think Shrout's mana got to be used to protect that Aetherling as much as that's possible.
Revelation for 2. Swift does not have a Skullcrack.
And theoretically, Shrout could be dead to a pair of Skullcracks there. Or I guess Swift only has 1 card in his hand, but he's like, okay, look, I've seen 2 Skullcracks already. If you draw all 4 of them,
So Shrout goes to 8. He's probably still going to play the conservative role in attacking with Aetherling. He is going to make it unblockable, though.
Unblockable.
Okay.
Swing.
I will not let you fog with your Legion Loyalist.
Yeah.
These white bordered basics
it's
are
just-
just killing me.
Just blink it. Yep. Again, the conservative route that will take Swift to 12. Shrout sitting
How
at
many
8
cards?
for not looking good for Orrin Swift.
Yeah, Goral's Chain Walk. I mean, this is exactly what happens when you play a deck with this powerful of an early game. Your late game draws start to look a little bit disappointing. On the other hand, he is able to get a trigger off of his Legion Loyalist attack with Hellraiser Goblin and Gorehouse Chainwalker. So, I mean, he can get a meaningful attack in here. It's just not quite powerful enough to kill Shrout right now.
Gabe Nassif has come back and taken game 2 from Patrick Chapen, tying their match up at 1-1.
All right. Swift trying to...
I'll burn it at your inside.
Yeah, okay.
Burn that Chainwalker that wasn't going to block.
Right. I mean, like Shrout just not wanting to take any chances here, wanting to preserve his life total, spend his mana effectively. Just, he knows he's in the driver's seat. He knows he's Aetherling, very likely to do the job. He just wants to make sure Swift can't accumulate a critical mass.
Right.
Swing for 5.
Swing for 5.
That sets up a pretty easy, pretty straightforward lethal attack next turn.
Take 5.
Next time.
Yeah. And the pattern that we have seen happen so many times with Aetherling and a lot of untapped mana continues.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's relatively fair to call that a format-defining card.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it represents the ceiling.
Even
for
though
all
I
kinds
haven't
of
declared
decks.
it, can I say that this is the second main phase?
Yes, you can.
Okay, this is the second main phase.
Okay.
Yeah, right. He doesn't want to just play the
your
card and
step.
have to attack it immediately into Etherlink.
Brian Kibler has taken down Kai Buddha, ending the Hall of
Unblockable?
the one Hall of Famers run. And Andrew Shrout going in. There's the handshake. Andrew Shrout has taken down Orrin Swift 2
I don't
games to
think the two
1.
would matter.
So we're going to probably get
I mean, I
back to
coulda
one
gone
of
at
those
USN
back
Jace,
games
but, like,
momentarily.
Just,
If you let me start Jason,
Yeah.
things get out of hand real quick. So,
I let you dig.
yeah, I had 2 Aether Eyes in my hand too. So if you let me untap when you have like a big board, then I like Aether Eyes you, and that buys me like a ton of time. No, I think it's
Can't wait to try out new Return to Ravnica block constructed in booster draft strategies straight from the Pro Tour? Log on to Magic Online and take part in the special Block Constructed Spotlight events, Block Constructed 2-man gold queues, and Dragon's Maze limited tournaments all weekend. For more information, visit mtgonline.com. And we're zooming back in here to the booth. I'm Sheldon Menery. He's Zach Hill, and we're having a lot of fun watching Fast and Furious action here in round 13 in Pro Tour Dragon's Maze.
Yeah, I've got to tell you, I'm really into Shrout's deck. I mean, I see what they're getting out of. He's in essence switching the black and the Esper control decks for red. He loses out on Sin Collector, which is a pretty meaningful omission, but you do get Counterflux, which helps you win Sphinx's Revelation fights. It wins Etherling fights by itself.
Right.
They cannot resolve an Etherling through a Counterflux, no matter how many counterspells they have in their hand. What that means is, okay, you're saying, okay, I win the Etherling fight, so I've got to take the long game against most other control decks, and he also have assembled the Legion to power through their removal to actually end the game themselves.
All right, so we're going to go down to the feature match area with Rashad Miller.
Hey guys, Rashad Miller here with Andrew, Johnny Hot Sauce Shrout. So, I'm sure you did a lot of testing on Magic Online. How did the metagame on Magic Online differ from what you encountered here in the 13 rounds you've played so far?
There's definitely a lot more control here than there was in the daily events on Magic Online, which is to be expected. A lot of people play 2 daily events at once, and you really can't do that with the Sphinx's Revelation deck. And then more so than that, a lot of people, with block in particular, is kind of a cheap format to get into on Magic Online. So I think a lot of people buy into like mono red or the black-green Varol's deck because they're cheap and quite effective for how much they cost. So I think the aggro decks are overrepresented online to a degree and probably underrepresented a little here. But there's definitely way more Sphinx's Revelation decks here than I expected.
Okay, so is this the deck that you tested with the most while you're preparing for this tournament?
Pretty much. It's nearly the only deck. I started with this. Of course, Magic Online, we didn't get access to Dragon's Maze on Magic Online for, 2 weeks, 3 weeks? Mostly I was just kind of thinking about decks. I was trying to decide like what the Dragon's Maze cards would matter and how they would affect the format. I didn't really get a chance to play games until like by the time I got a chance to actually play on Magic Online with the Dragon's Maze cards, I had already kind of thought out in my head and like kind of like thought experiment-y type stuff and just figured out like what a list would look like that I thought would be good for this metagame, which I expected a little more control than normal, but I didn't expect this much control. So I was kind of planning to play against control mirrors. And this was just kind of how I hashed it out. And as soon as it was available on Magic Online, I picked it up and started playing it, and it worked like a charm, and I've been happy with it.
Awesome. We're going to send it back to the booth with Sheldon and Zach.
You are correct. We are Sheldon and Zach, the comedy stylings thereof. Looks like we're going to have some time to get back to one of the other tables. We either have Yukihiro and Zadokai or Game 3 of Chapen Nassif. So let's see what we can get back to there. And it looks like it's going to be Chapen Nassif down to the feature match area. Yep, we're just underway, and there's Loxodon Smiter from Gabe Nassif.
And yeah, you see that Syncopate stranded in Patrick's hand. Can't really
Not
counter
like
an
this.
uncounterable spell.
Not like this.
Not like this. Oh, and Patrick Chapen has missed his 3rd land drop. And with an aggressive creature like the Smiter on board, Nassif is just going to start bashing into him. We see the Loxodon Smiter can't be countered.
Go.
And
Cards.
if the
7.
opponent makes you discard it, put it on the battlefield instead of in your graveyard.
So Nassif trying to figure out what he wants to do. Yeah, cycling that Azorius Charm instead of running Advent of the Worm into Syncopate. He has to assume Chapen kept the hand for a reason. He sees that other Syncopate on the side there, so he knows about Syncopate. They know each other's list anyway, but yeah, I mean, you've got to be just dejected if you're Patrick.
Voice of Resurgence is a reasonably good play. Oh, I'm sorry, that was a Temple Guard.
Temple Garden, he's got the the smiter, but right now he's just sort of saying go. He knows his smiter is going to do some work right here. Chapen does get his third land, but very possible that it is too little too late at this point.
We see 2 Revelations, Syncopate, a Cancel, and 2 Plasma Captures to go along with a Jace. So we know that there's no action for Patrick Chapen here for at least 2 turns.
Well, I mean, he can play that Temple Garden. He can cast Attention Sphere, which is I think what he's going to have to do. That is an opening for Nassif to just slam Advent of the Worm on the table. Chapen probably knows it to some extent. Either that the Sphere is going to get countered or a Worm's going to hit the table, and Nassif's going to be able to maintain the pressure.
Okay, if you're Nassif in this point, you just windmill that Worm on the table?
Yeah, I think I do. I think I let you get rid of my 4/4 and just pay a 5/5 while I have the mana to. If you don't do that, you kind of wasted some amount of mana on your turn. I mean, it's not quite that simple, but I think you just say, all right, like Patrick's at 10. My 5/5 kills him in 2 attacks. Why not just let that resolve? The only thing that's really going to punish you for casting Advent of the Worm right now is Cyclonic Rift. And, you know, I mean, it's not as though that's all you can do right now. Yeah, and that's exactly what we're going to see.
There's the Worm token. And it is going to put Patrick Chapen on a 2-turn clock.
Go.
Yeah, and then we see Plasm Capture in Nassif's hand to sort of protect him against anything that Pat does.
There's an Aetherling from Patrick Chapen. There's the handshake. Always the sportsman Patrick Chapen. Gabriel Nassif takes Chapen down 2-1.
Yeah, and you can see the disappointment on Patrick's face right there. I mean, he really wanted to play a good Game 3. These guys have had a history of great games.
But like mirror match or often.
Yeah, Nassif kind of trying to be conciliatory, but Patrick really needed that one. And
Okay, we're back in the booth. That was short, and you even heard Gabe Nassif saying, "Not this way." You know, you hate to win that way. You want a good, hard-fought match that you win, but you still would rather it be hard-fought.
Right. I mean, and you know, we thought Game 3 was going to be a pretty big game. These are not fast decks, but I mean, the thing I actually really like about Team Star City's deck is that it's a control deck that can really punish, you know, slow draws from your opponent. You've got Voice of Resurgence, you've got Loxodon Smiter, you've got Advent of the Worm. So even though it's a control deck that can play Aetherling Wars with the best of them and Plasm Capture into Giant Sphinx's Revelations, you also just end games on like turn 6 by attacking with creatures.
Well, I mean, Voice of Resurgence, I mean, that curve you described, that 2-3-4 right there, that's pretty savage.
Yeah, it's not too bad. I mean, the green-white deck in this format basically makes an entire game plan out of doing just that.
Yeah, it sure does. So I think we're going to go down to the feature match area momentarily. We're going to get Gabriel Nassif to talk to Rashad Miller. And we are not down there in the feature match area just yet. They're getting set up. Hopefully we will have a little more time after this interview, get over to that 4th match that we haven't seen anything of. Now we're down, feature match area. Kick it to you, Rashad Miller.
Rashad Miller here with Hall of Famer Gabriel Nassif. Now, I know you've had to have practiced that matchup a lot, and I'm going to ask you what the key to the matchup is, but you can't say Aetherling. So what's the key to the mirror matchup when you're playing the control deck that we see a lot of the Star City game players playing?
I don't know. If both players are playing good, obviously it's pretty much luck because we're playing the same deck, but I guess like knowing when to be aggressive and when to like sit on the counter spells, like yeah.
So if I let you say the word Aetherling, does your answer change any?
No, I mean it's very important, but I also think that you can easily win like this. I mean, a lot of games come down to like who like misses a land drop or two, or who gains the tempo with the early 2-drop smiter draw. So yeah, I mean, Etherling, I mean, yeah, if you have to factor it in because you can't like tap out and do stuff, but sometimes the game are like over before that. But Etherling is obviously like there's nothing you can do about it. Like if you're like even in life totals and someone resolved the Etherling first, he's gonna win like 95% of the time.
All right, we're going to send it back to the booth with Sheldon and Zach.
Sheldon Menery, Zach Hill in the booth. Round 13 action, Pro Tour Dragon's Maze. There we saw a little short interview with Hall of Famer Gabriel Nassif. We got to see in this round a good spread of decks.
Yeah.
There's always a worry coming into an event that one archetype is going to dominate, and I think we've seen here that we've had the nice range
Right.
of 4 to 6 dominant types.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, in block constructed in general, there's a lot smaller card pool. I mean, you have 2 large sets in this block format, so you have more cards to work with, and you have access to a lot more colors because of the way Ravnica works.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, in that sense, it's likely to be a healthy block format, and I think we've seen that diversity reflected in the archetypes we've been able to look at today. On the other end, it's kind of interesting to me how that diversity gets artificially constrained in an environment where, as we're seeing today, Team Star City games, for example, they're all playing the same deck. So that's 17 players. They're all on the same list. They're very, very good Magic players. That means day 2, even if your team's the only person playing a deck, that's a significant percentage of the field playing that deck. And we're seeing a good amount of mirror matches. We watched a great Reed Duke versus Tom Martell. That teammate, man, I thought there was a lot going on there. A little bit less interactive, a lot less interactive in Nassif versus Chapen, unfortunately, but can make for some good Magic.
Yeah, I mean, 17 players represents roughly 5% of the field right there. That's 1 in 20 players. That's significant.
Yeah.
But we are ready to go over to the news desk. Zach and I will see you back for round 14. But for now, over to the news desk.
Welcome back to the news desk. 13 rounds have gone, 3 rounds are coming. Let me tell you where we are. Look at the master scoreboard. I'm going to take you through the main matches and the ones that really count. So we're going to begin with Rob Castellan of the United States. He is 12-1, sitting alongside Craig Wesco. Both of them believe that just an ID will get them into the top 8. Can't say for sure they're right, but that is their belief. You're looking at probably 2 of the top 8. David Schaffman is at 11-2. Christian Fair lost, now at 10-3. Still, though, very much alive for the top 8. Orrin Swift, 10-3. Andrew Shrout, he is now up to 11-2 with that win. Josh Utter-Leighton lost. An eager and indeed anxious spectator in that match was none other than Yuya Watanabe. Watanabe now has 5 losses. He will not make the top 8. And that guarantees that Josh Utter-Leighton has a shot at Player of the Year right now. But the first port of call for him is get himself into tomorrow's shootout in the top 8. Mark Eilers there, you see, from the US, 9-3-1. Simon Berthieu, wheels slightly coming off there. He's now down to 9-4. Certainly no losses to give. Will he be part of the 4-loss lottery for the top 8? Let's see. Gabriel Nassif, you just heard from there. He's live at 10-3. Mahara, the 2006 world champion, live at 10-3. On X4, wow, Chris Fennell, Nicola Cuenca, his results just come in and gone to 9-4. They're right in the last chance saloon. Dusty Ochoa, not David, Dusty, 10-3. Reed Duke has a win at 10-3. Matej Zatlkai from the European coverage team and the Slovak Republic, 10-3. Stephen Mann, I can tell you, is 10-3. Andre Prost is coming into the rearview mirror. He's now at 10-3. And huge news, Brian Kibler moves to 10-3 at the expense of Kai Buddha. Ari Lax now down to 9-4. Those are the scores on the doors right now. Remember, we told you the 4th loss is critical. That puts you right on the edge of in or out for the top 8. X3, you're very much alive. Someone who is doing rather better than merely alive is the man who's waiting at the video wall now. This is Rob Castellan. What a fantastic story. Best email he never sent, replying to a PTQ that he was going to judge. Instead, I forgot to judge. I might as well play. He won it, and right now he is at 12-1, sharing the lead of Pro Tour Dragon's Maze. Let's find out about his astonishing block constructed deck. It's bonkers, and it's going to be told to you by Rob Castellan and Brian David Marshall.
Hi everybody, this is Brian David Marshall coming to you from the Tournament Center at Pro Tour Dragon's Maze in San Diego. I am here with Rob Castellan, and Rob, while we're here, why don't you just whip out your phone and check your Facebook status?
Apparently when you start doing well at a Pro Tour, there's dozens of people that friend request you and message you that you've never talked to before. So I uninstalled my Facebook app because I was tired of my phone ringing all day.
That's pretty crazy. I think everyone watching at home, or the vast majority of people watching at home, are fantasizing about having an experience like you're having, coming to your first Pro Tour, beating somebody with a Wikipedia entry, as was described to you by one of your friends at home, a former world champion, going 2 of them.
Yeah.
And you've become an internet sensation. Castellan Facts is a hashtag on the Magic Twitterverse. Josh Utter-Layton tweeted a Castellan Fact. He said, Rob let me mulligan to 8 twice and still beat me rather easily. It's been, what's this been like?
It's been fun. It's kind of surreal. I don't know very many people here. I know 3/4 of the judge staff. I've worked with 3/4 of the judge staff at Grand Prix before, but actual players, I've only ever had the judge player interactions with them, getting appealed by Brian Kibler and stuff like that. Not Brian Kibler walking by me and going, oh, you're X1 still? Good job. It's a different experience.
So a big part of your success is the deck we've been calling 4-Color Chant, or Voice of Insanity. Let's take a look at this deck and tell us a little bit about what your starting point was for building a block constructed deck. You didn't have access to a super team. You're basically working at home with your friends.
Right. We were playtesting, and our baseline test when we first started was beat Esper. We built a bunch of aggro decks, and then they were beating Esper, but then we played red, white, black. That was beating the mid-range aggro decks. And then we played mono red against red, white, black, and it was abysmal.
So just when you're starting out, what you're thinking about are, these are the 3 decks I want to be able to beat. Esper, mono red, and mid-range aggro.
Right. And the red, white, black deck was very, very good against Esper and very, very bad against mono red. So we scrapped it and we started playing green, white, black. And when we were making the deck list, we already had 4 Gatecreeper Vines in a mid-range creature deck with Deadbridge Chant. And we figured, why not Sire of Insanity in Rakdos Return? Rakdos Return turned out to be not very good. And when we started playing with sideboard games, with slaughter games, we realized we needed more red shock lands, and ended up taking out a couple Godless Shrines.
Okay. So you mentioned Gatecreeper Vine. This is a big part of what makes your mana tick.
He's insane. I'm playing 13 shock lands, so typically I have to shock myself on turn 2 to be able to play Gatecreeper Vine, but he more than makes up for it blocking a Boros Reckoner or something, just being healing salve, draw a land.
So very relevant for you as a speed bump.
Right. Speaking of speed bumps, we have Centaur Healer.
And so obviously is this a concession mostly to the mono red decks?
It's a concession to the fact that I'm playing 13 shock lands.
Okay.
And yeah, to the mono red. It gets sided out against decks like Esper, but having it in the main deck is very important. Just against a creature deck to be able to put something out there, gain some of the life I've lost by shocking myself, and maybe beat down a little bit.
Sure. Sin Collector, 2-1 for 3. Not super amazing, but against an Esper deck, this little paragraph of text seems pretty relevant.
When we first started playing, we had 7 3-drops, and we had 2 Centaur Healer, 2 Sin Collector, and 3 Loxodon Smiters. And the more we played, the more we realized that Loxodon Smiter is actually not that good for us. So we went from 2 Sin Collectors in the main and 2 in the board to 3 and 1, and then we realized Sin Collector is what we want to be playing on turn 3 against every single deck in the format that's not playing Dummy Rod.
And an important distinction to make, you said Loxodon Smiter not being good, but you're not saying that the card itself is not good, you're saying it's not good for what you're trying to do with this deck.
No, a 4/4 is way too small of a creature for our deck.
Okay. Voice of Resurgence, this was the talk of the tournament. Hyped, overhyped, or underhyped? What would you say?
Best card in the format.
Okay. That sounds like underhyped to me.
He's awesome against aggro, and he's awesome against control. He's pretty good against mid-range.
So you talked about not wanting to play 4/4s. They're a little too small for you. Let's take a look at some of the big fatties that make this deck tick. Deadbridge Goliath. What's the story?
Originally it was 4 Alms Beasts because he's a 6/6 for 4, and then we realized that Blood Baron of Viscopa is very bad for us, and we actually had no ways of killing it, except for giant 5/5 green creatures. If I was to build the deck again, with 7
So
more
if someone maybe at home is listening and wants to
Right.
fire up a gold queue,
if you're playing 5/4 drops, I think you want 4 Deadridge Goliaths before your first Alms Beast. The Scavenge was surprisingly relevant with, say, giant lifelinking creatures.
so you would say 4 and 1.
Right.
Okay.
Sire of Insanity.
We saw you just do disgusting things with this yesterday.
Yeah. Even against Josh Layton this round, he was playing aggressive Naya deck, and on turn 6, or maybe 7, I shocked myself, played Sire. I discarded a card, I think, and he discarded 3 or 4 cards, and him being stuck on 3 lands meant that he couldn't curve out, and Sire of Insanity was very good. It immediately got sided out against his deck, but
Sure.
it did a good job getting one.
And until they deal with it, this actually just like negates Sphinx's Revelation.
Right. You don't have to think about stuff that they could have on your turn because they don't have anything.
Very convenient. And a 6/4 body, not insubstantial.
Yeah, it's pretty quick clock.
So you mentioned Blood Baron of Viscopa being very good against you.
Yeah.
You also have a couple of them in your deck. What are they doing for you?
Originally it was Obsidat, but our mana base is just a little too greedy for Obsidat. Once we made the switch from Alms Beast to Deadridge Chant, we ended up going down to 2 Godless Shrines, and Obsidat was uncastable.
So you need to get to GG for the Goliath, getting to BB, WW as well. Even too ambitious for the person who spawned Castellan Fax.
Yes, that was a little too ambitious. So we switched the Obsidats for Blood Barons. It dies to Mizium Mortars, which is relevant. Like I said, I don't really like a 4/4, but it doesn't die to any other removal really in the format.
One Angel of Serenity, fairly self-explanatory. We've seen this card dominate in Standard. Let's take a look at some of your utility cards here. 3 Selesnya Charms, 3 Abrupt Decays, 1 Golgari Charm. Talk for a minute about a Golgari Charm. This is not a card we've really had up on the board yet this weekend. What is that doing for you?
Against Esper, regenerating is relevant.
So again, this is countering essentially a Supreme Verdict. Yeah,
One of the Rob Castellan facts was Rob Castellan can counter Supreme Verdict. It's actually true. It is also good against the Mirror for all the other people in the tournament that are playing Deadridge Chant. I can blow up their Deadridge Chant, which is completely irrelevant. I've blown up Detention Spheres on my Deadridge Chant with it. In one game in playtesting, over the first 3 turns, my mono red opponent played 5 creatures with 1 toughness. And I had made that Golgari Charm.
Devour Flesh, pretty self-explanatory, but I want to actually look at the next slide, which has Deadridge Chant. This is a card we've been talking about. Tell us quickly about why this card is so powerful.
It's drawing you a card every turn, and if it's a creature card, it's going directly into play, so you're generating a mana advantage. If it mills into Deadridge Goliath, it's insane.
Right, so you can force, you don't get to reanimate, but you get to like scavenge it onto whatever you want.
Onto a Blood Baron and have a 9/9 lifelinker.
Oh, that's disgusting.
I've done that multiple times today.
Doesn't die to a Mortars then. All right, let's take a real quick look at your sideboard here, because we're going to let you get down to the handshaking portion of this tournament. Overgrown Tomb, Temple Garden, Godless Shrine, Stomping Ground, Sacred Foundry. This is why you need to have your Centaur Healers, Guild Gates.
One of everything.
One of everything, and we'll see why in a minute. When we get to this, a couple basic lands, and then sideboard, Merciless Eviction, Gazer Granite. Has this card been good for you?
If I drawn it against Wesco, I would have done a lot better.
High Priest of Penance, Golgari Charm, Gatekeepers, Ready and Willing.
Insane. Best card in my sideboard.
Okay.
You even know it does.
Slaughter Games, Pithing Needle, and then I love it. Maze's End, you bring that in against control decks?
Yep.
And get all those Guild Gates that you were showing?
I go up to the 25th land and just try to grind them out.
Fittingly, Maze's End, we're out of time. For Rob Castellan, this is Brian David Marshall. That's a fact, coming to you from the Tournament Center.